Welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And of course, we are working on Torah
Amen.
Temimah. Thank you, Torah Temimah in Genesis, and we are just dealing with the story of Cain and Abel and the aftermath after Cain
We're
murdered.
doing this on Friday?
No. What happened was we completed all the work that we had done on
Oh,
Nitzavim Vayelech. So now that we had done all the Rashis on that, I went back to going to Torah Temimah, which if we ever do get through the whole Torah with Rashi, that's what I hope to do. This can keep us going for a long, long time. So, right? I'll read the text here, right? But so this Cain is now murdered Abel. God has asked him, where is his brother? His response to God is Hashomer Achi Anochi. There it is. Am I my brother's guardian? Am I my brother's keeper? Vayomer, and he said, this is God talking to Cain, Me asita, what did you do? And this is the beautiful statement on God's part. Pull the voice to me achicha of your brothers. Now the point is to me. It's not dam achicha. It's not the voice of the blood of your brothers. It's the voice of the bloods of your brother. So akim. This is also plural, right? The verb is in plural. Cry out, Eli, to me, min ha'adamah, from the earth. Wow, just beautiful. That every time there is a killing and a murder, this is what happens. The voice of that blood that is spilt cries out, cries out. Oh well. So, called me achicha, here's the Torah Temimah. Dam achicha lo nemar. It doesn't say dam achicha, ella deme achicha, but it says deme achicha, the bloods of your brother. Melamed, this teaches, shehaya damo mishlach al ha'itzim va'al ha'avanim. This teaches us, this implies that his blood was cast upon the wood and on the stones, or on the trees and on the stones. So that itself is, if we look at that from a literary point of view, what do the trees represent and what do the stones represent, and whether or not they represent sort of a very fundamental, the stones represent sort of the earth itself, and the trees represent the beginning of life on this earth, botanical life, and how it affects the purpose and the issue of the world. So here it is. Mipnei shelo yada. This is because Cain didn't know ba'meh lahamito, what to use to kill him, to kill Abel. Lachen hika oto, and for this reason he beat him with eitzim, with wood, right? With v'achar ba'avanim, and after that he beat him with stones. And again, the pathos involved in all of this, right? Using fundamental properties of the world in which we live to commit murder. And that, in a sense, that's something to think about. And sadly, as long as we don't think with our cerebral cortex, as long as we're only thinking with our emotions, we just don't consider these sorts of things. We just don't consider the implications of our behavior, especially of our cruelty. So, next one. Again, Kol Demei Achicha, right? The voice of your brother's bloods. Amar Rav Yehuda Berei de Rav Chia. Rav Yehuda said he was the son of Rav Chia. So the son of Rabbi Yehuda, son of Rav Chia, said, and this is of course, in parentheses, Dam achicha lo ne'emar, the blood of your brother is not stated, ela demei achicha, right? Melamed. So this is actually what is quoted in the Talmud, and this is from Tractate Nida, page 30b. These statements are all comments in the Talmud about this verse, right? Melamed, this infers, or rather implies, she'asa Cain behevel achiv chaburot, that what that Cain made in Abel, he smacked in Abel blows and blows, ptsaim, and swords and swords. In other words, he was beating him continually. So we see in the previous statement that he didn't know what to use as a murder weapon. Here we're saying that he didn't know where on his body to kill him. Right? Here we go. Shelo haya yodea, because Cain did not know mehechan neshama yotzeit, where his soul would depart, ad shehigia letzavara, until he reached his neck. So that's where he killed him. So he was smacking him continually to kill him until he finally succeeded. So, Kach Piresh Rashi. This is Rashi's explanation. In fact, if we go up here, we'll see it. Okay. At any rate, Darish Kain Belashon Demei. This is how he interprets that. He says that this commentary that Rav Yehuda, in the name of Rav Chia, the son of Rav Chia, based this on the language in the text where it says Demei. Right? It uses the plural. And for this reason, Hosafnu b'muskar, this is why we add, in other words, he's saying that this was an editorial addition on his part in that text. Dam lo ne'emar, this is what was included, right? It doesn't say dam, it doesn't say blood, ela demei, it says bloods. Ve'ien b'mefarshim, and he says, and if you want further, discussion about this, check the various commentators on this particular verse. So, let's keep going. This is what he says. Right here. Let's make sure I catch everything here. Right. Okay. Va'ata, and now arur ata, you are cursed. Min ha'adama, from the earth, asher patzta et pia, in that you broke open its mouth, its surface, right? You broke its surface, lakachta et me achicha miadecha, in order to absorb, to receive the blood the bloods of your brother from your hands. You were the cause of this. Again, you can see how what high literary style the Torah has in stating these things. Going on, ki ta'avod et ha'adama, when you work the earth, and of course we know that Cain was a laborer in the ground, right? Lo tosef te kochalach, it will no longer yield its strength to you. Na v'nad tia ba'aretz, you shall be a fugitive and a wanderer around the earth. Vayomer Cain, and Cain said back to El Hashem, to God, Gadol avoni minso, my iniquity is greater than I can bear, than can be borne. So this is, was he doing tshuva, or was he trying to just play around? And we're going to see here. That's what we're going to see. You look at this, right? Gadol avoni minso. Tana Rabbanan, our rabbis taught, Cain ba ba'alilah lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Cain came with a pretext, with trickery before God. He tried to trick God. Dichtiv gadol avoni binso, in that he said, my iniquity is greater than can be borne. Now, as you're going to see, okay, well, why don't I just do the straight Torah Temimah? Amar lefanav, he said before God, Ribono shel olam, master of the universe, klum gadol avoni, is my iniquity any greater, mishishim revo, from the 600,000, referring to the Israelites who left Egypt, she'atidim lachto lefanecha, who are in the future going to sin before you. In other words, of course, we're referring to the sin of the golden calf. Va'ata soleach lahem, and you're going to forgive them. In other words, normally we understand this phrase, my iniquity is greater than I can, well, we're saying than I can bear, but that's not the Hebrew really carefully. If we look at the Hebrew carefully, let's go back in here. It says, my iniquity is greater than can be borne. So the question is, who's bearing it? And in this interpretation, of course, it's a question. Is my iniquity greater than can be borne? And that's what Cain is challenging God back with this. And of course, the statement that we just read, spells out the way in which Cain was trying to get away with what he had said and what he had done. So let's take a look here. Mefaresh, so we can explain it. Demasha Amar Cain, that when Cain uttered those words, Gadol Avoni Minso, my iniquity is greater than can be borne. Hubelashon tmiha. It is in the language of surprise. In other words, is my iniquity greater than can be borne? Velo belashon hada'ah. It's not a statement of acceptance. It's not declarative. It's a question. Aval b'midrash Rabbah, Torah Temimah goes on to say that in the Midrash Rabbah, Ita, we see there's a statement in the Midrash Rabbah, Shehit Vadeh Cain, that in that sense, Cain made confession, right? He acknowledged Shegadol Avono, the greatness of his iniquity. Af michet Adam Harishon. In other words, he admitted and confessed that his iniquity was greater than that of Adam, who ate from the tree of knowledge and good. And even Yehuyan Sham, he says, check out Midrash Rabbah there. V'nir'eh, and it would appear to Hagamara v'Hamidrash that when it comes to the Talmud, which is where we were quoting, the Hamidrash and the Midrash, which is what he was referring to just now in his commentary, Bazeh l'shitatayu, that they follow their own position as to how you understand those words, right? De Sanhedrin Lamed Zayin, because in the tractate Sanhedrin, page 37b, Darshu, right, they interpreted the Inyan Cain, right, regarding Cain, okay, in commenting on Cain, de Galut Mechaperet Avon Mechatzeh, that exile helps to atone for iniquity 50%. That exile alone atones for iniquity by 50%. Mi ikra kativ, right? And it's essentially what's written here as it says, Vahayiti na vanad, because it says in the scripture, I will be a fugitive and a wanderer. We just read that verse, right, when we were reading from the Torah. Ulevasof, but in the end, Kativ, Vayashov be'eretz Nod. It says that he dwelt in the land of Nod, right? Vayuva besamuch. This will be brought in the next verse or two. Let's take a look here, right? Yeah, so here is Cain arguing about the fact that he's going to be sent into exile, etc., right? And here it says, let's see, here's where he says it's a nav and nad, right? A fugitive and a wanderer. And here God is saying that anyone who tries to kill Cain will be avenged, etc. And here in this verse it says, Vayeshev be'eretz nod. Right, so there's the nod. So the fact that initially he was told he would be a nad v'nad, right? Nevertheless, it says he lives in the land of Nod, which is half of Vanad. It isn't the whole place, right? It's not the whole punishment. So that his exile, we can understand, is a half tshuva or half kapara, half atonement. Okay, so Uva Midrash Rabbah, but in the Midrash Rabbah, not in Sanhedrin, but in the Midrash Rabbah, Vayikra, on the book of Leviticus, I believe this is Perek Yud, chapter 10, Amru be'inyan zeh, they stated regarding this matter, halashon zeh halashon, and regarding this expression, tshuva osam chatzeh, that he says there, it says tshuva, that repentance is able to accomplish the 50% of the punishment, right? Okay. For imkain, and if this is the case, the Gemara, the Sfira lay de Kain, right? That holds that Cain lo amar belashon hoda'ah, that Cain was not making confession in stating my iniquity is greater than can be borne, right? Lachein darshu galut, and for that reason, because he wasn't doing tshuva in that statement, he had to be cast into exile. And that's why they say, because he wasn't doing tshuva, as they understand those words, that's why they say that exile atones mechatzeh, right, for iniquity. 50% for iniquity. Midrash Rabbah, on the other hand, the Midrash Rabbah, the Sfira lahon de hitvadeh, they are the opinion, they interpret those words that he was making confession for asa tshuva, right, that he was seeking a forgiveness, right, doing tshuva, acting in a repentant way, darish tshuva oseh mechatzeh. And that's why they make the statement tshuva, atonement or repentance, is able to achieve 50%, the dok QED. So onwards to the next one. Gadol avoni minso, right? My iniquity is greater than can be borne. Tanya. So we have an early statement, right, of Mishnaic origins, but it's not of the Mishnaic period prior to the year 200. Veshvichut damim, right, regarding the shedding of blood, regarding bloodshed, ketiv, it says, gadol avoni minso. It says, my iniquity is greater, this word gadol, from the ability to be born. Uvilshan no hara, and with regards to lashon hara, bad mouthing, right, evil talk, ketiv, it states in Psalm 12, lashon medaberet gadolot. There's that word gadol again. It says a tongue speaking great things. Now, it's not great things in a positive sense, and if you look at the psalm, you'll see that it's clearly talking about lashon hara, right? Lelametza, this is to teach you, shekol hamesaper lashon hara, that anyone who engages in lashon hara, in bad mouthing, magdil avono, his iniquity is increased, keneged avon shvichut damim, as if he had spilled blood, right? And we'll see what Torah Temimah says, but it's equating lashon hara, which of course is so easy to commit, to bloodshed, to murder. So,
I had a question on that.
Sure.
You know, there's so many sayings from so many places about lashon hara.
Right.
So here we have lashon hara is equal, or because it equates with shedding blood.
It's equated with shedding blood.
And I don't know, my bat mitzvah portion was Achrei Mot Kadoshim in the section.
Yes. Okay.
Lashon hara is what we're going to be talking about there. And most leprosy means we're really talking about lashon hara.
I'm sorry. Forgive me. It was hard. It's hard for me to hear you. What were you saying was talking about lashon hara?
House leprosy, which is,
okay.
So it's like we can come around lashon hara in so many ways.
Right.
And how early did they come up with, all these different ways of talking about how bad lashon hara is?
I think it's a pretty, in terms of a religious discipline and the awareness of how dreadful and how damaging uh, Lashon Hara is, right? Whether it's bad mouthing or actual slander, etc. And on the one hand, what it's capable of destroying, especially destroying a person's reputation, but also because we talk, this talking and speech is something that comes so naturally to us. They wanted us to not engage in it. In other words, the truth is that it is so tempting and so easy to engage in Lashon Hara. You don't need to go to a store to buy something to do Lashon Hara. You just do it in the course of conversation. And of course, there are times again that our emotions get the better of us. The distinction, though, that I want to make is that we recognize, and I accept it, that it's very important at times to be able to vent. If you can't find ways to release the anger inside of yourself or the hurt, which of course is just the flip side of anger inside yourself, and you're not able to get it out of you, it just burns a hole in your heart and can make you sick. But the difference of Lashon Hara, I think, it's not talking about venting, where you talk to a professional, you talk to a psychologist or a social worker, but especially a psychologist, or you talk to someone who is going to keep it confidential. Here we're talking about the idea of intentionally going around and speaking maliciously about someone in the hopes that others will, that word is going to get passed on into the community and destroy someone's reputation. That is Lashon Hara. But I think we have to be careful to make sure that there's a place to be able to vent safely, where that it's not going to, that the person you're speaking to, it won't affect their relationship with the person about who's being spoken about, etc. But that they will help you just vent your feelings. So I think that's important. But the trouble is there are people who like to gossip. Okay, they just love to gossip and or else, to speak ill of people, etc. And they really don't care if that material, or they actually want to make sure that what they're saying gets passed on. So just a clarification.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
in studying Jewish teaching about Lashon Hara,
Right,
it's me that, gossip, malicious talking, libel, slander,
right,
those are understandable, but when it goes on, you don't say things about people just as a matter of course, as a matter of um, maybe like fence around Torah, so that you
right,
shouldn't cross the bounds without
right.
meaning it
Yeah,
also.
right. But again, in that particular context, right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, sure. All right, let's take a look quickly while we have a little time, see if we can get through this. I think we can. Umefaresh. So here we're explaining, right? Over here, this is what we're saying in equating Lashon Hara with bloodshed. And we explain Dechen Magdil Avono, right? So it goes on to say, I think in that passage there, right, that this person's iniquity, that is of bad mouthing, right, is magnified, keneged Gilui Arayot, that it can be compared to Gilui Arayot, which is sexual immorality. Dichtiv bazeh, and why that? Dichtiv bazeh, because in regards to sexual immorality, it says in Parshat Vayeshev, right, in the story of Joseph, where Potiphar's wife, is trying to seduce him, right? He says, Joseph says, how can I Eseh hara'ah, do this wicked thing, hagdolah, this, and there's the word gadol again, right? So we're talking about a gzera shava, where a specific word is being used in various contexts to link all these contexts one with another, right? How can I do this great act of wickedness to sleep with a man's wife? Ukeneged avodah zara, right? And also, it's also compared, that is Lashon Hara, is also compared to avodah zara, which is idolatry. Dichtiv ba, because regards to idolatry, it says, and this is in Parsha Tisa, right? In the Parsha of Kitisa, where they talk about the sin of the golden calf. Chata ha'am azeh chata'a gedolah. So it could be that God is speaking to Moses here, and he says the people have sinned, this people have sinned, and there's the word gadol again, right? A great sin. V'nir'eh klal habiur bazeh. And it would appear in general that to explain this, right, how you can compare Lashon Hara to these three cardinal sins, right? These are the three cardinal sins in Judaism, right? That is shvichut damim, bloodshed, murder, gilu arayot, sexual immorality, and avodah zarah, and idolatry, right? They are the three sins for which if one is told that you must commit these things, otherwise your life will be taken, you are going to take your life, you're supposed to commit martyrdom, right? Whereas there are other mitzvot where if it's your life or performing the mitzvah, you 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 don't perform the mitzvah, or you don't give up your life for them. But these are cardinal sins. Okay, so it would appear that in explaining what's going on here, the al yedei lashon hara, that by means of lashon hara, by means through evil talk, if shar lavo lechol ela hachataim, it is possible to arrive and do any one of these three sins. V'lachen danu et hamisaper lashon hara, and for this reason, someone who engages in Lashon Hara was judged, right, kegorem la'avorot elu, as if he had actually committed such sins. And that's where we'll stop for today. Okay, let's put this in here. So I'll see if I can just make a copy. All right, so I'm going to, very good. Let's do this. I'm going to take this and mark where we are here. And then, okay. So here we are. We're on this one for next time. And I'm going to stop the share. Okay. Hi, David. Good to see you.
Hello.
All right. I'm going to stop the recording. Take care, unless anybody has a comment or question. No. All right.